7 ways your job is killing you. Now, I've touched on some of these in a previous video, but I wanted to go into more in depth here because it's a very important topic. I mean, if you're in a job that is literally killing you, maybe you should think about retiring. Even if you're just close to retiring, maybe you should think about it. Number one, do you have a long commute to work? I know in my second to last job, I had a commute of about an hour and 15 minutes each way. And I'm normally a pretty mellow individual, but there were some cases there where I got into some serious issues of road rage. My blood pressure went up. Everything about it is bad. I mean, nothing bad came of it, but there's so much of that stuff that goes on in commutes, and especially in Los Angeles and the major cities. Why do you want to go through that anymore? Your blood pressure goes up. Your anxiety level goes up. It got to the point where I was dreading just going to work or just coming home from work because of what I was what the drive home was going to entail. Was it going to be bad today? Was it going to be okay? And not even just road rage, but just if you're in stop and go traffic all the time, and you see a little avenue there where you might make a little move, just the stress of that, just the, should I do it? Should I not? Should I do it? If you're in anything like that, guys, I mean, consider it. That can really affect your health. And the second thing about just having a long commute is just the pollutants you deal with when you're driving. I don't care if you have your windows all the way rolled up and your air on circulation mode. Do you think some of those pollutants aren't getting through into your car anyway? Heck yeah, they are. I mean, maybe it's a coincidence, but when I had that job, I noticed that I was getting sick more often, not really sick, but like cold symptoms, sore throats. I mean, commuting, especially in a major city for a long period of time, say more than 35, 40 minutes a day, is not good for your health, okay? Number two, and this can go along with that, do you get poor sleep because of your job or because you're dreading commuting to work next day or anything that has to deal with the job? Do you get poor sleep because of that? It's obvious. The more sleep you get, within reason. I mean, you don't want to be a slug and sleep, 13 hours a day. But if you can get 7, 8 hours sleep a day, your health is usually a lot better than if you get 5 or 6. There were times because of the stress of my job where I was getting, if I got 5, I would consider that a good night. Yeah, that's not good. Poor sleep is just terrible for your health. Number 3 that goes along with this is stress. Just stress in general. If the studies have shown that the less sleep you get, the more stress you have during the day because your body doesn't have time to refuel itself, to get itself feeling good. So less sleep equals more stress. You put that together with just the stress that you have during the workday, add all that up together, just the first 3 points with the road rage, that is enough to put you into high blood pressure area, anxiety, could curb your appetite. All these things long term are just not good on your health, guys. Maybe, if you can or if you're close to it, you should think about pulling that plug and retiring, or at least getting a part-time job so you don't have to worry about all that stuff. Number 4. And this can go along in some instances with sleep issues, substance abuse. I had a friend who was just getting such poor sleep because of anxiety from work. He started taking sleeping pills. And in his case, it was Ambien. At first, it worked great for him. He started relying on it more and more because it was always getting him the amount of sleep that he could get, that he needed for his job. It eventually turned into a case where he became dependent on it, and what made it even worse was that it was having an adverse effect on his mood. I mean, the Ambien itself, which he found out later, was causing him depression. It was causing him anxiety. he finally had to go into a substance abuse center just to get off that stuff. And this was all caused because of stress from work, causing lack of sleep. He was using substance to be able to sleep. Okay? If you're in a situation like that, obviously, I don't need to have to tell anyone, that's not good for your health. Okay? Number 5, which I touched on in another video, if you're in a job that deals with a swing shift or night shift, there have been studies that have shown that this can increase your weight just because your body's not used to being, especially if it's a swing shift or your shift is always switching left and right. Your body's just not used to that. You can gain weight. It can increase your blood pressure. If this is something that you've been dealing with in your workspace for a long time now, not good for your health, just not good. Obviously, your body's used to like sleeping at night and getting up and doing things during the day. If it has to go the opposite of that, even if you think you're used to it because you're doing it for years, still not good. Number 6, a toxic work environment. I've been lucky enough in my job history that I really haven't had to deal with that. Well, there's been a couple instances, but they didn't last too long. I think one lasted about 9 months. I just had a really bad manager. And it was all I could do just to stay away from her and just kind of like put the blinders on. And, so I was almost like, let me do my job. I'll do a good job for you if you can just leave me alone. All right? Because it was giving me so much stress, so much anxiety. Luckily, again, I didn't have to deal with it for too long. But if you have to deal with stuff like that for an extended period of time, number 1, with a manager. Number 2, maybe with a coworker that you have to work closely with on a day-by-day basis, and you're dealing with this over an extended amount of time, again, bad for your health. Like we talked about the whole video so far, blood pressure, anxiety, lack of sleep, all that stuff, it just all adds up. If you're in a company that is not doing very well, and they're always having layoffs. I was in a company during my music industry career that it seemed like every, not 6 months, I'd say every year and a half, boom, here comes another round of layoffs. Now, that might not be considered toxic, but it's not a healthy work environment, right? So if you're in stuff like that you're always looking over your shoulder, it's like, ooh, am I going to be next? Because, the guy in the office next to me went a year ago, coming up on another round, he had my exact same title. Is it going to be me next time? That's not good. Now, I know in some cases you can't get away from that, right? I mean, especially in a bad economy, companies might not always be doing that well. So can you really get away from that? Well, that might be tougher than some of the other ones we mentioned. And finally, number 7, and I mentioned this in another video, but again, it bears, repeating again. If you work not in a toxic work environment regarding employees, but just toxic in general, if you're working with chemicals, if you're working manual labor all the time, where might not be dealing with bad chemicals for your body, but just over time, it might be breaking your body down just from the manual labor. If you can't get out now, at least start planning for it. Maybe give yourself a budget to stick to contribute to your retirement account or plan, or hopefully there's a 401k thing with your job. If you can't do it now, guys, at least start planning for when you can get out. And you don't have to retire early. You could retire at 62, even 65. But the earlier the better. If you're in any of those 7, things that I've mentioned in this video that can create bad health environment for you. It's the last thing you want in the world to be, let's say you retire, you hold on to these jobs that are just bad for you until you're 65. 66 rolls around, you start having health issues because of the last 30 years you were in those bad environments. Don't let that be you, guys. Don't let that be you. If you're in any of those 7, or I'm sure there are a lot of other ways that, bad work environment can affect you, get out, or at least plan to get out. All right? Anyway, guys, that's all I got. Hope everyone's doing well. And remember, we got this.